This is the weekly sales meeting for May 19th, 2024. My name is Chris Fleming. You can reach me at chris@cdmediaconsulting.com or go to our website at cdmediaconsulting.com. Today's topic, what is your blind spot? My blind spot is I expect people to behave in the same manner as me. When I ask a question, I expect an answer. I expect that answer to be honest, as that is what I would do. When I ask for a commitment from someone and they tell me it will be done by a certain day, that is what I expect, as this is how I would handle it. 50 years of this and you'd think I would have learned my lesson, but I still expect people to behave as I would. This is a terrible blind spot, and more than once I've been burnt by it. This structure suggests that everyone is operating from the same frame of reference and operating with the same level of integrity. Despite this self-imposed handicap, I've managed to get this far. Our blind spots are the behaviors or beliefs that we are unaware of or we overlook. They can hinder our self-awareness. They can limit our ability to understand how our actions influence others. They can have a negative influence on our decision-making. They can be cognitive, resulting in an unconscious bias. They can be emotional and formed from ingrained habits. Or they can be behavioral and impact us by creating gaps in our understanding. A blind spot is related to cognitive biases, but it is not a cognitive bias itself. A blind spot is an area of ours where we lack awareness. It covers anything in our orbit that is not clear to us. Cognitive biases are specific patterns of deviation from the norm. They lead to perceptual distortion, inaccurate interpretation, and irrationality. Cognitive biases can contribute to blind spots, but not all blind spots are the result of biases. A blind spot is any area where we lack awareness or understanding. Louis James Jim Margraf is an American entrepreneur and inventor. He is known as the inventor of the LeapPad and is the founder and CEO of Kabim Learning. He says the only way to deal with our blind spots is to keep looking for them. Identifying personal blind spots requires introspection. It requires feedback from others. It requires a willingness to challenge our assumptions. If you can humble yourself enough to recognize and address these blind spots, you will be on the path to be better. You will boost your self-awareness, you will improve interpersonal relationships, and you will make more informed decisions. Acknowledging and working to mitigate personal blind spots is a big key to growth. Philip Calvin McGraw is known as Dr. Phil. He is an American television personality and author. He is best known for hosting the television talk show Dr. Phil. He claims you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So let's look at some of these biases and how they contribute to our professional blindness. Confirmation bias happens when we search for, interpret, and recall information in such a way that it supports our pre-existing opinions. We seek out information that aligns with what we already believe to be true. In the same vein, we disregard or at least discount that which we believe to be untrue, and this is without regard to any evidence that contradicts those beliefs. This bias can influence decision-making processes. It leads to a reinforcement of these existing beliefs, rather than an objective evaluation of evidence. It is a common phenomenon. It happens particularly in politics, but also with science and religion. Overconfidence bias happens when we have excessive confidence in our ability. We overestimate our skills relative to reality. We think we are better than we are. This leads to errors in judgment or decision making. Sometimes we think we know more than we do. This leads to faulty assumptions. The result is usually a false starting point. Others are overconfident in the accuracy of their assessments. This reliance leads to errors and/or assumptive uncertainty. It leads to taking excessive risks or making poor choices, all based on this inflated sense of self-confidence. The implicit bias is stereotyping. Our decisions and actions get shaped by our unconscious application of this bias. It is formed through experiences and socialization. We often allow past experiences to dictate future actions, and these behaviors are ingrained. They happen in the blink of an eye. They are almost reflex reactions. They operate at the subconscious level. They can impact our decisions without us realizing it. These biases are often based on race, gender, age, or socioeconomic status. Since they operate in the subconscious, their manifestation is often subtle. We may associate some groups with a particular trait without intending to do so. We make assumptions on someone's ability based on their identity. These reactions cause a perceptual distortion. The Dunning-Kruger effect has two parts to it. Those with low ability or low knowledge in a particular area tend to overestimate their competence, while those with high ability may underestimate their competence relative to others. People who lack skill in a specific area believe they are more capable than they are, and the converse can also be true. Competent individuals underestimate their abilities. They do this based on the assumption others share their level of expertise. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger first described this bias in their research paper. It was published in 1999. Their research demonstrated incompetent individuals were often unaware of their own incompetence. Because of this, they were unable to assess their level of skill or knowledge. This lack of self-awareness leads to overconfident behavior and poor decision-making. The sunk cost fallacy happens when you continue investing time, money, or resources into a project or decision. You do this despite the knowledge that it is unlikely to succeed. This irrational behavior is driven by the consideration of past investments, sunk costs, rather than focusing on future costs or benefits. The fallacy arises because we tend to feel a loss aversion toward the initial investment. It is an investment we already made. If we abandon a decision, it would be wasting the resources we have already dedicated, even though those resources are irrecoverable or sunk. We focus on what we already invested rather than evaluating the current situation. We should consider the future prospects. Instead, we place a greater emphasis on the sunk costs over potential future benefits. We pour more money into a failing business because we already invested significant amounts of cash, even if it is clear that the venture is unlikely to become profitable. We would be better served considering whether it is in our best interest to continue. Another problem for us is projection. This is what I alluded to earlier. It is attributing one's thoughts, feelings, or characteristics to another person or entity. There are four main ways this will manifest itself. There is perceptual projection, which is casting our belief onto how we perceive the world. Someone who values punctuality might assume that others also focus on this same respect for time. Then there is social projection, which is assuming that others share the same values you do. It is the main cause of assumptions. We make the leap thinking everyone else thinks or feels the same way we do. There is cultural projection, where we put our cultural norms onto other societies. This can result in misunderstandings, as we judge other cultures based on our perspective. Finally, there is symbolic projection. Here we attribute meaning to external symbols based on our internal beliefs. For example, interpreting a particular animal as a symbol of good luck. David Joseph Schwartz Jr. was an American motivational writer and coach. He is best known for authoring The Magic of Thinking Big in 1959. He said, "You only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. But you should know there's a lot you don't know." The anchoring bias occurs when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive. This is the anchor. This first piece of information serves as a reference point against which all other information is then evaluated. Even if the anchor is arbitrary or irrelevant, it can still influence our judgment. Even when we are aware the anchor is inaccurate, we struggle to adjust our decisions away from the anchor. Anchoring effects can persist even after the anchor is no longer relevant, and especially when it has been discredited. In a negotiation scenario, the first offer made by one party can serve as an anchor. It influences all subsequent offers and counter-offers. There are many more biases contributing to our blindness, but these are the primary contributors. The real question, and the point to this, is how do you spot it? And the bigger question is how do you overcome it? There are some signs that one might exist in your orbit. It could happen when you find yourself feeling defensive when receiving feedback, especially if it challenges your beliefs. This may be a sign of a blind spot. It could be that you experience repeated challenges in certain areas of your life. This is without understanding of the underlying causes. Then you may have a blind spot. If you get feedback that surprises you, this may be a strong indicator of a blind spot. And if after receiving feedback you flat out ignore it, this may be a sign of the presence of a blind spot. See if you recognize any of these other tells. Displaying a reluctance to consider alternative viewpoints. Being dismissive of ideas that differ from your own. Making consistent misjudgments in decision-making. Misjudging interpersonal relationships without recognizing a pattern. inflexibility in adapting to changing circumstances, or being reluctant to consider alternative approaches. These are all signs you may have a blind spot. If you avoid topics that challenge your beliefs, if you struggle to acknowledge and learn from failures, if you attribute them only to external factors, if you overemphasize your strengths and avoid areas for improvement, these are all signs you may have a blind spot. Recognizing these tells requires a high level of self-awareness and a willingness to reflect on your thoughts, behaviors, and interactions with others. If you notice these signs, it may be an opportunity to explore these potential blind spots. You can consider seeking feedback to gain a clearer understanding of yourself. Addressing personal blind spots requires self-reflection. You need feedback from others and a commitment to continuous learning. It involves challenging assumptions. It requires seeking diverse perspectives. And you must be open to adjusting your beliefs and behaviors based on new information. Start with your inner circle. Seek honest feedback. Get feedback from friends, family, colleagues, and mentors. Create an open and safe environment where people feel comfortable sharing criticism. Reflect on your thoughts, actions, and decisions. Seek out diverse opinions. Engage in conversations with people who have different backgrounds and perspectives. Pay attention to emotional triggers and explore the underlying biases. Stay informed about cognitive biases and human behavior. Educate yourself on topics related to your field. Question your own assumptions. Consider alternative perspectives. Seek evidence that may challenge your existing position. Use personality assessments and professional evaluations to gain insights into your strengths. Discover areas for improvement. Identify recurring challenges in your personal or professional life. Reflect on whether certain behaviors or decisions contribute to these patterns. Embrace a mindset of continuous learning and improvement. Stay open to new ideas. Embrace feedback even if it challenges your current standing. Schedule regular self-assessment check-ins to test your personal growth. Engaging in these practices gives you insight into other aspects of your life. Some of these you may have overlooked. Approach this process with a genuine commitment to personal growth. Have a willingness to address and learn from these identified blind spots. Daniel Joseph Boorstin was an American historian at the University of Chicago. He wrote on many topics in American and world history. He became the 12th librarian of the United States Congress in 1975. He wrote, "The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge." My new book, 21st Century Sales Success, is now available on Amazon.com. If you like what you have heard here today, please consider ordering a copy or two. You can always send one to a friend. Go to cdmediaconsulting.com right now and follow the instructions to order.